One time I flew to Paris for a man, and then when I landed, he told me he had a girlfriend. This is genuinely one of my most chaotic love life stories ever. And last night I was stress baking some banana bread and I bought this new suction cup phone mount off of TikTok shop. And I decided that this was the perfect excuse to share this chaotic story with you. When I was 19, I studied abroad in Paris, and towards the end of my time, I had gone out with some friends to this Australian bar, and I met this really beautiful man, and we ended up like ballroom dancing in the club to Elvis, and it was the craziest like Hallmark movie moment. But of course, I was going back to the US in a few days after, so we had exchanged numbers, stayed in touch, and then spring break that following year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna plan a trip back to Paris. I had been messaging this guy leading up to it. The plan was I was gonna be in Paris for a week. One of my best friends was going to fly over from Germany, and I was going to do just the first weekend with her, and then I was going to be with him pretty much the rest of the trip. When I landed at Charles de Gaulle, I was waiting for my friend to arrive, so I was messaging him saying like, hey, this is our plan. We're gonna go out tonight if you wanna join us. And he ended up responding and saying, thanks, I just have to see what my girlfriend wants to do tonight. Like, excuse me, sir, what? I was in the airport in Paris when he said, oh yeah, my girlfriend. First time that had ever come up in conversation. And I know you're probably thinking, Charlotte, how did you get to this point of not actually clarifying your intentions and making sure this was abundantly clear? Well, great question. One, I was 20 years old by that point. I wasn't as smooth as I am now, and also lacked some of the communication skills that I now have. I also blame the fact that he is fluent in many different languages, so sometimes things get lost in translation. I am inherently a flirty person. His culture is also inherently a flirtatious culture. So there was just a lot lost in translation and from my own naivety. So naturally, I decided that I was not going to see him. And my friend from Germany and I decided that we were going to go out in a different part of town that night. Now, this part is really crazy because we were leaving the bar at 4:15 in the morning. We were in a different part of town than we would usually go out in. And I walk onto the street and I hear, Charlotte from Chicago? It was the Algerian magician that I had gone on a date with a year prior when I'd actually lived in Paris. Anyways, after the weekend, my friend went back to Germany and I was going to be in Paris for a few more days. I had only gotten a hostel then for one night. I was like, well, I have some friends here. I'll see if I can crash with them. Like, let me figure out what to do next. I had ended up making a new friend from a Facebook group, and we were going to go out for dinner. So we met up, and I had my suitcase with me, and she looked at me and said, why do you have a suitcase? You've been here for a few days. I was like, yeah, and I explained how I'd flown to Paris for a man. He had a girlfriend. My whole itinerary has now been switched. She goes, girl, I had originally planned this trip for a man, and then he got a girlfriend. So do you want to stay with me? And I was like, I've known you for a full 15 minutes. Sure. So I spent the next 2 days crashing with her. This was many years ago, and she and I have actually stayed very, very good friends, which is hilarious. But having barely known each other, crashed in the same hotel room. I took her out with some of my friends that were in Paris that night. We ended up at a bar called Le Charlotte Bar. There ended up being a bar fight started. It was crazy. Ended up having to sit in the trunk of someone's car because there wasn't enough space in this European tiny clown car. And then the next day, a few of us were going out. We went out to this magician bar called Abracadabra. I don't know how that theme kept coming up this trip, but alas, it did. So we went out to the Abracadabra bar, and the bartender was super cute. I remember him having maroon pants, which is one of my favorite colors, so I complimented him on his maroon pants, and my bartender friend made fun of me, saying, did you just compliment that strange man on his pants? I was like, dude, stranger, not strange, but yes. So anyways, I was talking more with the bartender, and I love birthdays, so I asked him, how old are you? When is your birthday? And he's like, actually, tomorrow's my birthday. And I said, you mean in 18 minutes? And he said, yes. And like clockwork, all of his friends showed up at the bar to then surprise him to celebrate his birthday with him at midnight. I asked him, so what are your plans for your birthday? He said, well, nothing really. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm going to get lunch with my parents and then I'll have a house party at night. And again, I love birthdays. So I said, well, can I take you out for ice cream? And he looked at me and said, what? I said, yeah, can I take you out to ice cream for your birthday? And he looked at me and said, all right, which again, I've known this man for maybe 10 minutes and have just asked him out on an ice cream date on his birthday. We end up meeting up for ice cream, and the ice cream shop that I picked was actually near his university. So we took our ice cream and then we walked around La Sorbonne, which was really fun. And he said, what do you want to do now? I said, well, we could go over to the Eiffel Tower, knowing fairly well that one of my bucket list items is to be kissed under the Eiffel Tower. As we are on the metro over to the Eiffel Tower, my friend who I had crashed with in the hotel texted me and said, hey, I'm headed to the Eiffel Tower if you want to meet up. So the irony of all three of us being there together, bless her heart, she ended up playing Wing Woman. She ended up pretending to take a phone call at one point, and I turned back to him and he leaned in and kissed me. Literally such a magical moment, because not only did I get kissed under the Eiffel Tower, but it was by a beautiful French man on his birthday. A short time later, his phone alarm starts going off. He said, I have to get home to start setting up for my birthday party. Why don't you come join? I said sure and asked if I could bring a friend, and he said, yeah, absolutely. Having genuinely no idea what to expect, he sent me the address. I missed the fact that this was going to be a house party. I thought this was going to be out at a bar with a lot of people. No, it was an intimate birthday party with his closest friends, a few cousins, and then me and my friend. Was meeting and mingling with people. Oh, how do you know him? Oh, we went to elementary school together. I'm his cousin, blah, blah, blah. Then they would say, how do you know him? I said, well, I met him yesterday. His cousin came up to me and she was super sweet, and she ended up saying, I don't know what's gonna happen between you two, but is it okay if you and I at least stay in touch? And I said, what? She's like, yeah, honestly, I'd really like a native English speaker to practice my English with. Regardless of what happens with you and my cousin, would you be fine being friends and staying in touch? And I said, you know what? Abso-frickin-lutely. He ended up treating me like his girlfriend the whole night, was making me drinks and just introduced me to all of his friends, and it was a wonderful time getting to celebrate him. But naturally, I went back to the US a few days later, and it fizzled out as expected. But his cousin, though, she kept up her side of the bargain, and we stayed in touch. We would communicate over social media, and then we ended up pen paling a little bit and sending each other a few notes. I ended up working remotely in Hawaii for a couple of months. She sent me a postcard from Paris, and it was wonderful. I ended up coming back to Paris a year or two later, and I needed a place to crash for just one night of my trip, and I ended up staying at his cousin's place with her and her boyfriend at the time. Now, this part is also really insane, because when she and I were hanging out, her boyfriend was at work, we had ordered in pizza, we were chatting, and I had told her the story, like my side of the story of how I met her cousin, that trip, like how I had originally come to Paris for a different guy, and then the Algerian magician. And she goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. An Algerian magician? Was his name redacted? And I was like, yes? What? Apparently, she went on a date with the same Algerian magician a year before I did. I was like, what do you mean? We both went on a date with the same Algerian magician. I'm like, I don't even live here, and this is before, like, years before I ever knew her. What are the odds? So anyways, flash forward a year, I invite her to my birthday party in the US, and she says, actually, I can't go. My boyfriend and I have a special trip to Italy planned. I said, great, enjoy. She texts me on my birthday that he proposed, and now they're engaged. I was so excited for them, and she said, let me know the next time you're in Paris. And this girl literally planned her engagement party around the next time that I was going to be in Paris so that I could attend her engagement party. What? At the engagement party, the day before, she tells me, by the way, my cousin is coming to the engagement party. And I'm internally thinking, girl, did you plan this just to try to play matchmaker to set me back up with your cousin again? He and I had had minimal communication on Facebook over the years. He was now living in the French Alps, essentially, not in Paris anymore. So it was really nice to get to see him. And it's also crazy to think that I was at the engagement party of the cousin of a man that I kissed under the Eiffel Tower like 5 years prior on his birthday. But at the engagement party, he did tell me, he said, I just have to let you know, I have a girlfriend. I said, that is okay. I am super happy for you. And then it somehow came out that he thought I was a Mormon, which I don't know where he got that. But he was telling people at the engagement party that I was a Mormon. But he was a gentleman the entire night. It was really great to see him. Really wonderful to get to celebrate his cousin. And then flash forward, and I get the baby announcement. So the next time that I was in Paris, I ended up getting to meet the baby when she was still really small, and it's just crazy to think of the lineage of how much time has gone on and how I am still so intertwined to this family, and I love it. I live my life a mix between catch flights, not feelings, but also, yeah, go flirt with the bartender. Go ask that person out, because you never know. Multiple years later, you may be meeting his cousin's firstborn child after attending their engagement party, all because you stopped to make a friend. And that truly embodies my mission of make friends in unexpected places. Also, in case you were curious, this banana bread was fire. Absolutely 10 out of 10, no notes.